Hey everyone. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. I am here with Dr. Ryan Sousley. I'm really excited about today's interview about inflammation, what it does to your body. So if you are catching the replay, thank you so much. My name is Jenny Meyer. I am a certified personal trainer, a gym owner, and a mom of 3 little girls. And this is Dr. Ryan. I will have you introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Ryan. I'm a dad of 2 little girls and a little boy. Finally, we just had our third just a few months ago, and I'm also really excited to be with you. I get to do a lot of speaking around the country and online, and but I hope that I can bring a bunch of value to you this morning in the short amount of time that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background with health and wellness, what you do, all of that.
I'm a chiropractor. That's where my doctor comes from. But, I've been a lifelong athlete. I, played all the traditional sports growing up, like football and basketball and baseball. But I really started getting into fitness and nutrition when I was about 14. I don't know if you ever read the book by Bill Phillips, Body for Life, but it was like a pioneering book, back in the high school buddies workout programming, and it really just took off from there. And so I got a scholarship to play football in college, and I pursued a degree in exercise science, and that's what I graduated with. And then my wife and I went to Atlanta, Georgia, to go to chiropractic school. And while I was in chiropractic school, I also worked as a personal trainer at an LA Fitness down there. And, just my passion and curiosity, actually, it's safe to say it's an infatuation with human performance and just maximizing health potential. It just grew and grew and grew. And so now, I literally have a license to be a doctor to, help people. And so I do adjust patients, obviously, but really my passion, Jenny, as you know, because we've worked together for several years now, is to educate and empower people can really take care of themselves. And I know that's why you're doing things like this video cast, because you want to give people information to be better stewards of their body and get the most of out of their body. Because my big why, to take a second to explain that, what really drives me is I believe we're all here for a reason. We're all on this planet for a reason. And if you have poor health or you have health issues, we're going to talk a lot about inflammation today. When you're struggling with these things, they hold you back. They keep you down. You're not able to be as good of a mom as you'd like to be. You're not able to go out and adventure and explore, let alone just carry out your daily activities. And so that's what really gets me fired up is researching and applying these laws and principles of health to help people get the most out of their life. And so after chiropractic school, my wife and I went and spent a year at one of the biggest chiropractic clinics, natural health clinics, as a matter of fact, in the world, in Naples, Florida, learning from some of the top doctors. About 5.5 years ago, opened our doors. We've just been extremely blessed to grow the largest clinic in the state of Idaho, and maybe even in the Northwest. I'm not sure, but we just keep getting sent people, and we keep trying to help them, and we've seen just amazing results. And that's really what I'm going to pull from today is not a bunch of sciencey, nerdy stuff, because I think that's kind of boring, but everything that I'm going to talk about today is just either from experimenting on my own body or from the thousands of patients that I've worked with so far. And hopefully
it's breaking out just a tad bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I got you.
Okay. So let's get into inflammation, because this is a huge topic with my clients, with what I struggle with. So I've just been super intrigued about it. And I love your knowledge from your experience and your schooling, everything. So that's why I brought you on today. So can you explain what inflammation is, what causes it, certain foods, and kind of dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the sake of the attention span, I'm going to keep it really, really simple, because you can get really nitty gritty and get into the molecular physiology of what happens during an inflammatory response. But nobody really cares about that. What people care about, and what I care about, is when my body's in a state of inflammation, what happens? Why is that a bad thing? and what causes it. And so just to be really brief, all inflammation is it's your body's response to some kind of stress, and so if basically the way I look at it, Jenny, is if you do something with your body, or you put something in your body, whether it's too much of the wrong food, even too much of the right food causes inflammation. But anytime that your body or your physiology is out of alignment or out of congruence with the way that it was designed, your body's going to respond with inflammation. And so inflammation, a lot of people know this by now, but inflammation, they say, is the root cause of all degenerative illness and even a lot of acute illnesses. So you look at something like heart disease, in the blood vessels in the heart. Diabetes starts with inflammation in the pancreas because it's got to produce a lot more insulin to shuttle sugar from the bloodstream into the cells. Inflammation in joints, obviously, is from overworking your joints or improper movement. I know that's a lot of what you do, is coaching people to move their body in a about that too, I think. But all inflammation is when your body's out of balance and it's responding it's reacting by creating these little micro fires. So the way that you can think about it is inflammation is kind of like these little microscopic fires that are happening in different places in your body. A good example of this would be like if you sprain your ankle, when you sprain your ankle, what happens? It gets swollen, it gets hot, it gets tender to the touch, it's sore, you can't put any pressure on it, it gets really red. Well, all of those things are part of the inflammatory cascade. So it's kind of like there's a little fire inside your ankle. So the first thing to think about is that inflammation is not always bad. Everybody wants to say, well, how do I de-inflame my body? Well, you don't want chronic inflammation, but if you sprained your ankle and you didn't have inflammation, that would be a bad thing, because inflammation is actually the way that your body copes with stress. The bad thing is you don't want inflammation happening day after day after day after day. It'd be like rolling your ankle every day. Obviously you'd eventually end up with mush for an ankle. You wouldn't be able to stand on it or do anything. So inflammation in a small amount is good. Inflammation in a big amount or consistent, struggle with. And obviously, the biggest sources of inflammation come from food and movement, either improper movement or lack of movement altogether. And so the things that inflammation cause, and so just if you're watching this is how you know whether or not your body is inflamed. If you have chronic pain anywhere in your body, even something like headaches, neck pain, knee pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, diffuse inflammation like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, all of those are conditions of chronic pain. Some are localized, some are diffuse, meaning all over your body. If you have joint soreness, so like I deal with a lot of patients who have osteoarthritis, degenerative arthritis, even like autoimmune arthritis, like rheumatoid or psoriatic arthritis. But all of arthritis is just inflammation in the joints over time, and then it starts to break down the bone and the joints and everything else. Muscle stiffness is another really good one. And a lot of people think that if their muscles are stiff, it's just because they work out a lot. Well, I've been working with athletes, some professional or college athletes, for years now, and it's just amazing. The people that really take amazing care of their bodies can be humongous in terms of muscles. But if they take care of themselves, those muscles are actually really, really relaxed and loose. They're not super rock hard all the time. And then other people have almost no muscles, and it's like there's cement in their traps or their upper back or their shoulders. Yeah, that's all from inflammation. Fatigue, like I talked about, microfires that happen in your body, whether it's in just one location or systemically. And we'll talk about the difference between, what causes, localized inflammation, what causes diffuse inflammation. Usually localized inflammations from exercise, either improper movement or lack of movement, and diffuse inflammation would be from nutrition, because nutrition doesn't just affect your knee, nutrition affects your whole body. And then the last thing would be chronic sickness. So if you're the type of person that always gets sick every year, you get the flu once or twice, you get 1 or 2 or 3 colds, you're the person that always catches what's going around in the office or at school, there's a good chance that you've got quite a bit of inflammation in your body because it weakens your immune system as well.
Yeah, that's really good information. I know I personally struggle with the muscle localized, as you know, but how are there like certain foods? So let's focus in on the inflammation that certain foods cause. Can you dive into what foods like are more likely to cause inflammation?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and you've been to some. What I teach is usually based on the 80-20 rule, meaning 80% of what it takes to be amazingly healthy is really, really simple. There's usually like one or two really simple things that are going to solve 80% of your problems. It's kind of like exercise. The 80-20% rule in exercise is if you just get off your butt and go work out and sweat, that's going to solve 80% of your problems. You're going to be 80% of the way there if you just do that consistently. You don't need, a super fancy plan. You don't need a bunch of super fancy equipment. And that's where you come in with your coaching is you're keeping people accountable. You're getting them to do the right thing consistently. And that's the thing, I think why you're successful, why I've been successful is because we're not necessarily teaching people something that's mind-blowing, but we're getting them to do what they already know they should be doing.
Yep,
and that's
totally.
But we're all the same way. That's human nature. I pay probably $50,000 a year, just so you know, in coaching. Even though I'm a pretty successful guy, our practice has done amazing. We're in the top 2% of all chiropractors in the country in terms of success. But I still pay a lot of money in coaching because knowing what to do and doing it are black and white. They're opposite sides of the coin. So the point is, when it comes to nutrition, the 80-20 rule is if you just get rid of sugar, it's going to solve 80% of your problems. And I know that today we're talking about inflammation, but my goodness, sugar's been linked to be the number one cause of cancer. It's the number one cause of obesity. It's the number one cause of hyperactivity disorder in kids. It's the number one cause of hypertension and cardiovascular disease. And the way that and remember, inflammation is at the root of all of those things. And so it'd be safe to say that sugar is the number one cause of inflammation nutritionally. And then the sequela is that because of the inflammation, depending on, not just weight loss resistance and hormone imbalance and fatigue, which is, I know, kind of the audience that we're talking to today, they're interested in those things and fitness and that kind of stuff. But degenerative illness too. Like cancer, for instance, cancer cells, studies show that cancer cells have 8 times the affinity or attraction to sugar than a regular human cell. Meaning, like, if there was a cancer cell and just one of your normal regular cells, the cancer cell has like these magnets that are 8 times stronger for sugar. So they attract sugar 8 times stronger than the rest of your body. So when you eat sugar, not only are you causing inflammation, you're literally feeding cancer. So if you're out there and you have cancer, or you have a history of cancer, or family history of cancer, the worst thing that you could do, like if you want to guarantee yourself to get cancer, over the next 10 or 20 years, eat a bunch of sugar, and I promise it'll. That's really neat. That's something that we've helped patients with also but if you reduce sugar intake, not only are you reducing inflammation, you're reducing your risk for all degenerative illness and weight loss resistance, hormone imbalance, fatigue, but you're also starving cancer cells. And I only bring up cancer because 1 out of 2 women and 1 out of 3 women in the world die from cancer. It and heart disease are the top 2 leading causes of death, in the world. So sugar is the biggest one. I always call sugar the devil of nutrition. And I'm not probably telling anybody anything I haven't heard already. If you pay attention to the news or read anything, we all know that sugar is bad. The problem is that sugar hides out in a lot of really obscure places. Like for instance, if you eat a salad, everybody goes out to eat and they get a salad and they think they're doing themselves a big favor. Dressing you get, because dressings are just packed with sugar. In fact, we got this stuff. My wife made this, and whatever the little tiny tomatoes, those grape something tomatoes.
Yeah,
anyway.
grape tomatoes.
But she bought this like Chipotle mayo from the health food store, and it was pretty clean, but one of the ingredients was sugar, and so and it wasn't very much, but it just blew my mind. It's like, in mayonnaise, there's sugar. It's unbelievable. In fact, I've even read some articles that have found sugar in table salt.
Oh, geez.
And and the reason, Jenny, you probably know this, but the reason why they put sugar in everything is because it's the most addictive food on the planet.
Yep.
In fact, I read a study a while back that showed that trying to quit eating sugar or quitting sugar is just as hard as quitting crack cocaine. Because it's the same receptor sites in your brain. So if you're out there and you're listening, you're like, man, that's not, I've tried that. It's really difficult. I fell off the wagon. You're not the only one. There's probably no one listening to this or watching this that's ever, succeeded on their first attempt, because it's really difficult, and it's just in everything.
Yeah.
But, so the most common places where sugar hides out, other than the obvious, like ice cream and cookies and that kind of stuff, but would be like refined carbohydrates. So like bread, pasta, rice, cookies, crackers, chips, sauces. Sauces is a big one. And people tell me this all the time. And I don't know if you get this, Jenny, but people always ask me, well, what about stuff like oatmeal or, Dave's Killer Bread or Ezekiel bread or something like that, where it's, it's sprouted grain, it's all healthy nuts and seeds. And my answer is always, well, that's better than like a Snickers bar, but it's still sugar. There's only three things that food can be. It's either a carbohydrate, a protein, or a fat.
Yep.
And so there is such a thing as good carbs, bad carbs on some level. But if your goal is to decrease inflammation, and by decreasing inflammation, you want to lose weight, you want to balance hormones, you want to increase your metabolism. I mean, the number one cause of weight loss resistance for all your people, I'm sure you've talked to them about this, but the reason why people can't lose weight is because their metabolism's stuck on sugar burning mode.
Yep.
And
exactly.
they keep feeding themselves sugar, and there's all this inflammation, and the body's trying to deal with all the sugar and inflammation, and they're not busy burning all the fat that they have laying around in their body. You know what I mean? And so,
exactly.
I mean, you've probably seen people like this too, but we've had patients in our office go on like a ketogenic diet, which is essentially no sugar. It's like 5 to 10% of your calories sugar, 60 to 70% of your calories fat, actually, which is odd because people are like, when I get fat, you won't get fat. And then the rest of it's protein, so like 15 to 20% protein. And I've had people, I just had a guy last week came in, started eating a ketogenic diet at the end of January, and just by following this ketosis. So it's part of it is, you're reducing all this sugar, which is a lot of calories, but you're reducing all this inflammation. Now your body can work, more in alignment with the way that it was created to.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I have my clients do the carb cycling to where on their heavy strength training days, they're fueling with those healthy carbs, and we're focusing on the food in the whole foods. Did it come from the ground or did it come from a mother? And that's when they're replenishing their energy source and carb source on the strength training days, but other days is more of the high fat. So
like
it works.
Oh, totally. Just a couple other foods real quick, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But another one is conventional meat. So like if you're eating just regular beef, like ground beef or steak or whatever, and it's not grass fed, so the concept is the same with animals as it is with humans. If you're a human, which hopefully you are if you're watching this, if you eat corn, most people think, oh, corn's a vegetable. Corn's not a vegetable. Corn's a grain. Sorry to tell you that, but corn's a grain. And so when you eat grains, it's a sugar. It produces inflammation. Not to mention that corn and soy are the number one most genetically modified food crops on the planet. So it's very difficult to get non-GMO corn. But the point is, if you eat corn, it's going to cause inflammation in your body. Well, unfortunately, if it's not grass-fed beef, what all these big cattle lots and feedlots have been doing for years is feeding cows tons of corn. Well, why do they do that? Well, number one, corn's cheap. Number two, though, is because they actually want it to cause inflammation and it makes your muscles really sloppy and tender and not firm, right? Yeah. All the opposite things that we want for our bodies. So the problem is you eat this steak that's juicy, delicious, it's got a lot of fat, it's all marbled and everything, but it was fed corn. You're getting all that inflammation passed down through that food. And then the same is kind of true with like farmed fish and caged chicken eggs and that kind of stuff. So the point is grass-fed beef, free-range chicken, wild-caught fish. Just eat clean meat, and if you can't afford clean meat, I would just say then don't eat a lot of meat. It would be better to eat very little meat, but the meat that you do eat is clean, and just eat more vegetables. That would be much healthier. In fact, as a society, we eat way too much meat anyway. That's another for another day. But and then bad fats. So that would be the last one that I would talk about, is just bad fats. And bad fats, I heard you make a statement like, does it come from the earth? And the way I look at food is there's I call it food by God or food by man. All that really means, not a religious statement, just to say that, if you can go out in nature and find it, chances are it's pretty clean. Again, it's the 80-20 rule, right? If you can find it in nature, it's probably pretty good for you in moderation. Like you can't have pineapple every meal of the day. Otherwise insulin levels are going to spike. You're going to get diabetes from pineapple. But the point is, or there's food by man. So fats that are found in food by God or food in nature, always going to be clean. So what would be examples of those? Well, things like avocado, clean meats, obviously, raw nuts and seeds, olives, olive oil, anything coconut. We're huge. We probably have a jar of coconut oil in every room in our skin, for hair, for aftershave, for cooking. We put it in our smoothies, right? We put it on everything. It's great for rashes. And then, one of the sources of pretty good fats, although one of the things that you and I talked about earlier was from dairy. Dairy does provide a good source of healthy fats. However, dairy for a lot of people can cause inflammation too. So if you're not struggling with inflammation, I would say, clean dairy. So like I do something in the morning that I think you and I have talked about in the past, but bulletproof coffee. So like I'll do like 12 ounces of coffee, organic coffee, black, 2 tablespoons of raw butter. So like from grass-fed cows, undenatured, unpasteurized, all that stuff. And then 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. So again, we put coconut oil in everything and then we just blend it. And it's, you've had it, right?
Yes, I have.
It's phenomenal. So like this, and people think, well, isn't that a lot of fat, a lot of calories? Well, it is, but it's, for me, so like I'm training for an Ironman triathlon again this year, bike ride. And all I had beforehand was a cup of bulletproof coffee. Since then, just the Pellegrino. So, and I'm getting hungry, but in the morning, and I haven't eaten anything since about 7:30 last night. But what that does, and it, even when you eat healthy, there's a little tiny bit of inflammation that happens. Cascade of events to help digest and assimilate nutrients, which is good, right? It helps your body heal and recover. But when you're putting your body under this little bit of, this little state of stress or this micro state of stress. So it's not to say that you should always be fasting every day, but I actually do something called intermittent fasting. And this is one of the things that I was going to get to later that's phenomenal. Like not eating anything, because it forces your body to kind of take an inventory of everything that's going on. And that's why all this research is coming out now about how intermittent fasting is pretty much good for everything, kind of like how sugar is bad for everything. They're identifying now that intermittent fasting will help any condition under the sun, because it forces your body to become more alert, because it's not busy digesting and assimilating food. yeah, even though it might be healthy food, it's able to take a look around, like you and I are business owners. It's kind of like the concept of working in your business versus working on your business. Well, if you're constantly in your business with your head down doing the busy work, you can't ever think high level and have a different perspective and then be able to, move the whole thing forward. Your body's kind of the same way. And so when you're in this state of fasting, and then if you exercise when you're in a fasted state, that's even better. Maybe we may have time for that or not, but when you're in this fasted state, your body recovers exponentially faster, from different things. Inflammation goes way, way, way down. And then your body, it's like all hands on deck to whatever problem's happening.
Yeah. And
or fibromyalgia.
Yep. I definitely follow the 16-8 fasting, intermittent fasting, and fast every day for 16 hours. And that's what I have my clients practice. And it takes a while to get used to it and slowly introduce, like, okay, start out with 12 hours and then slowly work your way up to it. And then every now and then to do a 24-hour fast. So I agree 100% with that.
Yeah. It's not easy, especially if I love what you said, because then you're not going to be hungry while you're sleeping. So there's 8 hours right there. So all you really got to worry about is maybe 2 hours before and 2 hours after. That's not that difficult to do. And then you can but yeah, it's amazing how, your body will adapt. But yeah, so bad fats. I know I got off kind of on a tangent there, but bad fats are going to hide out in anything that's man-made typically, so like, potato chips, crackers, almost anything that's packaged. And you got to be careful because just because you get it at the health food store doesn't mean it's healthy. I walked by these things that were like healthy Oreo knockoffs at the health food store. And I looked at the ingredients and it was like all the same ingredients that Oreos had, except it was all organic. And it's like, well, organic sugar is still sugar,
Yeah.
Oh, geez. It may not be quite as toxic, but you're still going to get diabetes. It's a healthier version of diabetes, but at the end of the day, it's still diabetes. So you got to be careful. So anything that comes in a package, you just have to be a label reader, and anything that says trans fats, hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated, anything that's like canola oil or anything like that, and that's not to say that all packaged foods are bad, but you just have to really be, mindful about that. Another place that it hides out, and this is, if you eat close to the paleo diet or ketogenic diet, any kind of nut butters, because, when you get away from the sweets, nut butter is kind of like your treat. Like when I get home at night, have dinner, usually my dessert is like a third of a jar of almond butter.
Me too. I'm right there with you.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if, we were at some friend's house this weekend, and bless her heart, the mom, my wife's best friend, she's totally a health nut, and she gets all her stuff from Trader Joe's, and she just, in a hurry, just like most of us, she's like, oh, it's Trader Joe's peanut butter. That's fine. And we got to their house, and I try not to be offensive, but I'm just meticulous about whatever I put in my body. So I'm in the kitchen, like looking, I'm like, hey, did you know that there's cake frosting sugar or icing? I just called icing sugar in your peanut butter. And she's like, what? And so
that's
you just,
you have to read.
And but it's addictive. And I had some anyway, because, I was just super hungry. I just got done with a 10-mile run at that point. But anyway, you gotta be a label reader. And so anything that's packaged, you just got to watch out, because typically there's some nasty fats that are hanging out in there.
And then I guess, let's go into how can it affect your functioning? How can inflammation affect day-to-day physical, mental, emotional even?
Yeah. So inflammation, think about it this way. It's kind of like, if your body is, normally running at a certain pace, let's say, that running is kind of like you're running on pavement. Well, inflammation is going to be like running in sand. It's just going to slow everything down. It's going to make everything a lot more difficult. And then the thing is that anything that you already have going on is going to be exacerbated or made worse. So it's like if you have a little bit of joint pain from doing overhead squats, and you have a shoulder injury from 20 years ago. Well, if you participate in these inflammatory, things, whether it's things you consume or things you do or don't do, then it's going to make that shoulder pain a lot worse. If you're pre-diabetic, it's going to make you diabetic. If you have the beginning stages of hypertension or cardiovascular disease, it's going to push you over the edge into full-blown, that full-blown disease process. So it's going to push you to the next level in the wrong way, for anything that you already have. But what you might notice, aside from just disease processes, is lack of clarity. Like I've had a lot of patients over the years come in, and we can just attribute inflammation to this lack of clarity, just kind of feeling like they're not all there, And I don't know if you've had days, and I've had days like that too, where it's no matter how much sleep I got, no matter how much coffee I drank, no matter how much exercise I did, this inflammation, it was like there was just this block. It's kind of like those Claritin commercials, where they show the person that's like looking through a foggy lens, and then they take the Claritin, and then I'm not a big fan of medications like that, but it's a good commercial because it gives you a good visual. But I feel like that sometimes. Depression, even inflammation can push someone over the edge into depression, because inflammation can cause hormone imbalances. Because hormones are what your body uses as part of the defense mechanism, so your immune system. And usually, now if it's a muscle injury or a ligament sprain, muscle strain, that kind of thing, this is, your immune system is not necessarily going to get activated a whole lot. But if you're consuming toxic food, or you're using toxic personal care products, and that's another source, Jenny, that we didn't really get into a whole lot, but I think it's worth mentioning. Because the way I look at it is, the where you need to start. So like if you're watching this because you want to reduce inflammation, obviously you are, then you got to think about, okay, what are the sources that I most frequently am exposed to that cause inflammation to my body? That's why we talked a lot about food, because typically you're eating 2 to 4 times a day. Exercise is one. But even if you're exercising every day, you're only exercising once, and most people, it's more like 2 to 4 times a week. But personal care products is another thing, because you brush your teeth 2 or 3 times a day. You're using soap on your skin 2 or 3 times a day. You're putting lotion on your body, chapstick, lipstick, makeup, hair stuff, whatever. And so a lot of those personal care products are extremely toxic, and again, the 80-20 rule that I like to go by is, if you can't pronounce it or it looks like it's a chemical, don't put it on your body, because whatever goes on your body goes in your body. And the difference is your skin doesn't have a digestive system like what's on the other end of your mouth. So you have a liver and a pancreas and a spleen and kidneys and stomach acid and all these things that help detoxify and eliminate, because then you go to the bathroom and you eliminate all these toxins. Well, when it goes on your skin, it just goes directly into your bloodstream. So like, for example, deodorant. I always tell patients, start with deodorant because it's cheap, it's easy. It's going to cost you $2 a month more to use regular or use clean deodorant than, the stuff you've used for years. The difference is that $2 a month could save your life, because conventional deodorant typically has aluminum, titanium dioxide, or propylene glycol. And propylene glycol is essentially antifreeze. And then aluminum and titanium are heavy metals that cause toxicity. We all, we all know that hazardous waste is full of heavy metals, or that they've got to be handled with hazmat regulations, like mercury, for example. So start with deodorant, but then take a look at all the rest of your personal care products, because chances are there's a lot of, nasty stuff in them, and that's going to cause inflammation, because then that actually will evoke an inflammatory or immune response from your body. And then that's going to throw off hormones. It's going to cause mental fatigue. It's going to cause mental unclarity. So yeah, those are probably the earliest or the most prevalent signs that I see. Fatigue, just feeling like your body's run down, lack of mental clarity, and then also like weight loss resistance or just hormone imbalance, which are usually kind of the same thing.
Are some good signs that someone's struggling with this?
Right. Well, and chronic pain, obviously. I mean, and that's kind of I feel like that one's kind of a given, but chronic pain where the pain is just not subsiding no matter what you do.
Yeah.
There's a good chance there's lots of inflammation.
Okay. Yeah, you are full of great information. I love it. Do you have anything else you want to share just to kind of close us out on this talk on inflammation that you want to, any suggestions or anything that can help whoever's watching?
Yeah. If you want action stuff, I'm a big action person. Every time I do a workshop, I always tell people, the number one key to success is taking action. Because if you don't do anything about it, it's not going to work. Like none of this stuff works unless you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I always like to make it simple too. So every time I listen to a podcast, every time I read a book, every time I go to a seminar, every time I go to church, I always try to walk away with what's the one thing that I can walk away with and change that'll move me forward. Because if you walk away with 12 things, chances of you doing all that is minimal.
Yep.
Even if you're a checklist type A personality like I am, I've become disciplined to only do the one thing or maybe the two things. So to kind of break this down into maybe like 3 categories, and then your listeners or watchers can pick and choose which category they want to identify their one thing in. Awesome. Number 1 would be nutrition. Yep. Right. So cut out all the refined carbohydrates, the sugars, the bad fats, switch your meats to healthy, clean meats, or just avoid meat as much as you can, as much as you need to, depending on your budget. And then something that we didn't get into, but I'm just going to list these off really quickly. And you can just Google anti-inflammatory foods. So it's not like, this is no big secret that I had to go to school to learn. But these are some of the most powerful ones and the most realistic, because there's some berries that are on the mountaintop of, some mountain in Africa that you could go get and spend a fortune on, or you can just grow stuff in your backyard, and they're both effective.
Yeah.
But these are the most anti-inflammatory foods. Anything that's really high in antioxidants. So like when you go to the grocery store and you see really dark, like purpley or dark red vegetables or fruits for that matter, those are typically the highest in antioxidants. So like blueberries, blackberries, boysenberries, even cranberries, raspberries and strawberries too. But even things like purple sweet potatoes. So we lived in Atlanta, and in Georgia, they have they're just incredible, really, really dark, rich purple sweet potatoes. And the antioxidant count in those are actually higher than blueberries.
Wow.
So anyway, anything antioxidant. Garlic is another one. So if you have a lot of pain, or you get done with a really tough workout, that Jenny gave you, and you're just trying to recover.
Eat some garlic.
Seriously, eat some. And here's the best way to do it that I've found, because you can cook with it, but usually you can only eat so much garlic in a meal. So the best and easiest way that I've found to do it is to chop up a garlic clove, or maybe 2, or dice it up. Let it sit for about 10 minutes, because that 10 minutes of air is going to oxidize the garlic, which actually makes it a little bit more powerful. And then just shoot it back and then chase it with some Pellegrino or water or something like that, just to eat it whole, or just like all at once like that.
I should test that out. I don't know how much Matt would like that.
Well, that's the other tip. Do it at the end of the day so that your bad breath can come out while you're sleeping. That's also why I take my fish oil at the end of the day, just in case, you burp that up in a patient's face. It's not good. Dark leafy greens, and actually anything green for the most part, is going to be really high in phytonutrients, and it's going to be anti-inflammatory. So things like broccoli, all that stuff. Nuts and seeds, as long as they're raw, because if you eat roasted or cooked nuts and seeds, it's denaturing the fats, and then it turns into a bad fat, what nature intended to be a good fat. So the more raw nuts and seeds you can eat, the better. Berries, I said, tons of water. Water, think of it this way. Again, inflammation is like these little microfires happening in your body. What do you do to a fire? Dump a bunch of water on it to douse that fire. Drinking a lot of water, literally, that's why I have this huge thing that I'm pounding right after my workout to reduce all the inflammation in the muscles that I just, crushed for the last 2 hours. This is so green tea and coconut oil, but this last one, this is probably one of the most powerful ones. And this is all over the news if you pay attention to health stuff lately, but it's turmeric, depending on who you're talking to. But it kind of looks like ginger, but it's really bright orange. We take a supplement that's got tons of turmeric in it. We also will juice turmeric. it's really hard to find in food, because it's in like a lot of Indian foods and that kind of thing. But any way that you can get turmeric in your diet on a regular basis is going to really, really, really help with inflammation. Mm-hmm. So that would be category number 1, food. Category number 2 is personal care products. We went through that, so identify whatever you use most. So for me, I don't put a whole lot of stuff on my body, but it's toothpaste and deodorant, because those are things that I put on. I sometimes reapply deodorant a couple times a day because I'm working out a bunch, but toothpaste for sure. And then category 3 would just be movement, So I think that's where you're able to help a lot of people with what you do. And I know you work a lot in the nutrition space too, but proper movement and consistent movement. Yep. So moving your body consistently is step number 1. So I hate it when patients say, well, I'm not working out because I don't know what to do. Well, what are you doing instead? Well, I'm sitting on the couch because I'm not sure, or I think I'm going to hurt myself. Yeah. Stop saying that. You can go move your body, do something, walk around the block, get your heart going, sweat a little bit, get in the habit. Then let's talk about how to refine that habit and make it effective and beneficial. But then, for most of your watchers, I'm sure they're already movers. It's proper movement, so getting someone like Jenny who can coach you, or, YouTube videos, different things. Cause if you're moving improperly, I mean, man, I actually hired a triathlon coach, because even though I've been an athlete my whole life, there were some little minor things that I was doing wrong in terms of my running gait and my swim technique, and even my body position on the bike, and I tweaked those little things, and a lot of inflammation dissipated from my body. I feel a lot better while I'm doing those things, and then especially after. So proper movement, and I do have to give a little 30-second plug here, because I am a chiropractor. A lot of people don't pay attention to their spine in terms of proper movement. And spinal health is, contrary to what most people think about chiropractic, most people think that a healthy spine just means a spine that's in alignment, and a spine that's, stacked on top of itself, nice and neat. Well, that's obviously part of it, because you want to be balanced and symmetrical. Yep. But even more importantly than that, and I've got a lot of patients who their spine will never look great. Like I've got this old injury in my lower back. It's an old fracture. And because of how the fracture happened, and then the healing process that my body underwent afterward, that's never going to be in alignment. But as long as I keep that part of my body moving correctly, and I pay attention, I'm intentional, I don't have any issues. I'm still able to do Ironman and CrossFit and all these crazy things. So it's proper movement, but having someone that can kind of manage the movement of your spine, test the movement of your spine, and help you with that, just like you helping people with the rest of their body, it's hugely important. And I've seen people where they have chronic knee pain come into my office. We find something that's not moving properly or not aligned properly in their spine, and it ends up affecting their knee, and their knee pain goes away. We never even touch their knee. In fact, I had a guy a couple weeks ago who said, "Hey, can you adjust my knee? Can you pop my knees?" I'm like, well, I don't want to pop your knees if there's no issue in your knee. Let's take a look at your spine first. And after 2 weeks, if it's not any better, I'll look at your knee. And 2 weeks later, we balanced his pelvis out, got his spine moving properly. And the overcompensation that was happening in his knees, which was causing his knee pain, stopped, and his knee pain and inflammation went away. So category 3, proper movement, take care of your spine. That's my plug.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So well, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you any longer today, but I appreciate all of your knowledge and just being out there too. And I watch your live videos too on Facebook, and love just the motivation, just the encouragement and motivation and knowledge behind it all. So thank you very, very much for that. So I hope whoever's watching right now, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will check in with you guys later. Bye.
Thanks, Jenny.